Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Thursday, June 1st, 2023, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network from Atlanta. The Supreme Court came down with several decisions. One of them has an impact on labor. We'll talk with the Nation Justice Correspondent Elie Mystal about the Supreme Court decisions and what they mean, and also get his take on what is coming down next when they likely are going to get rid of affirmative action. Also on today's show, Exavier Pope, you've often seen him on the show as a panelist. Boy, he caused quite a stir on social media when he tweeted about a Uber driver asking him to send him gas money to deliver his food. And Exavier like, hell no. Well, a lot of folks got upset with him. We'll talk to him about how that one tweet has actually gone viral. Also on today's show, a Georgia County Sheriff's Office faces more allegations of employees assaulting inmates. We'll tell you about what's happening in Camden County. Also, at today's convening of the Southern Justice Coalition, a variety of grassroots organizations participating with the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Reverend Dr. Bernice King spoke to the group, and so we'll show you some of what she had to say as well. Plus, we'll remember actor John Beasley, who passed away at the age of 79. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, it is the 1st of June, which means Supreme Court decisions coming down. 3 rulings were issued today by the Supreme Court. Let's go right to Elie Mystal, Justice Correspondent for The Nation, who can explain to us exactly what happened. Elie, always glad to see you. Let's first start off with this labor case. What was the case about? What did the Supreme Court decide?
Yeah, so the right to strike, kind of an important tool in labor's arsenal against corporate interest and corporate greed, that was severely vitiated today at the Supreme Court. The case is called Glacier Incorporated versus Teamsters. Basically, the Teamsters union walked out on the job of a cement company, right? They poured the cement, they put it into their trucks, the Teamsters drove the trucks away to start the deliveries. Around lunchtime, the Teamsters called for a strike. So instead of delivering the cement, they drove the trucks back to the lot and left the trucks running and walked off the job. Well, if you know anything about cement, you know it tends to dry and harden. The cement dried, some of it dried and hardened, some of it damaged some of the trucks. After the strike was over, Glacier, the cement company, sued the Teamsters union for economic damages for the lost cement and the damage to the trucks. Now, in normal situations, that case gets thrown out on its ear. And in fact, when they sued in Washington State Court, the Glacier is the cement companies from Seattle, it was tossed out on its ear. But the Supreme Court revived the case, and today, by a vote of 8-1, with Ketanji Brown Jackson being the only dissenting justice, the Supreme Court said that the cement company could, in fact, sue the Teamsters for economic harm for their strike.
Okay, so explain 8-1. That's interesting because you got 3 so-called liberal justices, and so what the hell happened here? Yeah,
I mean, I'm kind of, excuse me, I'm kind of grasping at straws to understand what was in the minds of Sotomayor and Elena Kagan when they voted along with this decision. Because make no mistake, if you can sue, look, the point of a strike, right, is to cause economic harm to your employer. And while everybody understands,
right,
you can't walk out on the job and, set fire to the building on your way out. Everybody kind of understands that. But causing some kind of economic pain to your employer is literally the point of a strike. And if the company is then able to sue the union in this case, every time there's economic harm based on a strike, it just curtails the ability of unions and workers to organize and cause that economic pain to get better deals at the negotiating table. Why did the other 2 liberals join with the 6 conservatives on this case? Well, I think I'm going to be nice to them and say that what they were trying to do is mitigate harm. Legally, there's a technical issue about whether or not the National Labor Relations Board gets to hear this case first. Usually, the National Labor Relations Board would get to decide before the Supreme Court. In this particular case, the conservatives said that they could interpose themselves before the NLRB. But Justice Thomas and Justice Gorsuch, and to some extent Justice Alito, would have basically disagreed with the NLRB's right to exist. And so if those 3 had held sway on the Supreme Court, the decision would have been far, far worse. And it's possible that Sotomayor and Kagan went along with, Barrett, who wrote the majority opinion, Amy Coney Barrett, and the other kind of more moderate conservatives, simply to mitigate the harm that Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch were trying to do. That's my best answer for them. But the other, I think, upshot is that by being an 8-1 decision, it kind of let Ketanji Brown Jackson loose to write, so far, the best dissent of this term. Her dissent, put like this, her dissent is longer than the majority opinion and some of the concurrences combined. She went all in on how terrible this decision is and how if the court had should have had basically the humility to allow the NLRB to make the ruling first before the Supreme Court stepped in and ruled on the side of the corporations. It was a brilliant dissent that she was free to write, in part because, hey, she was a lone dissenter, so, she shot her shot.
And well, of course, and as usual, Clarence Thomas, full of crap, pretty much saying, why even have a National Labor Relations Board?
Yeah, his argument was that the deference that we normally give to the NLRB should not exist. And let me just quickly explain why does the NLRB exist, right? Why is there a National Relations Board? Well, because there's a National Labor Relations Act which protects the right to strike, and it protects it on a national level, so that when it comes to striking workers, you're not supposed to have to worry about whether or not you're in Illinois or California or West Virginia or Ron DeSantis stand in Florida. You're supposed to have a national protection for workers' rights and for the right to strike. And that is the heart of what this decision goes at. It takes away, and Thomas would have completely taken it away, Barrett severely weakens that national protection for the right to strike, and instead leaves it up to state by state by state to determine kind of which damages are going to apply. And you can imagine how hard this is going to be going forward for labor organizers. You can imagine, I don't know, writers striking in California. Now, instead of availing themselves to the National Labor Relations Board, they might be sued in California, in a California state court, over grinding Hollywood to a halt. You can imagine coal workers striking in West Virginia. If you're a coal worker in West Virginia, who do you want to hear your strike? The National Labor Relations Board or some state court judge in Huntington, West Virginia, right? So by taking it back down to the states, what they've really done is, again, severely weaken the right to strike for union organizers and workers all across the country.
All right, let's talk about this this communications lawsuit. What is that all about? Explain it.
Oh gosh, I barely know. I mean, it's a false claim acts issue that I'm barely read up on. It was a unanimous decision. Even though it was written by Thomas, it was a unanimous decision. So I'm going to, based on my very poor understanding of it, I'm going to say it was not off the chain weird. I was kind of surprised that the court took the case in the first place, because I thought it was a kind of simple issue, again, to the extent of my very limited understanding of it. And the fact that it was a 9-0 decision on this case makes me feel that I was probably right to not pay too much attention to it.
All right, whistleblower decision.
The whistleblower decision. So that was from last week, right? So the key with the whistleblower decision is it's really about oh wait, are we talking about Paxton, or are you talking about the environmental law case from last week?
The one involving a lawsuit going forward that companies defrauding Medicare and Medicaid programs.
So that was so that was a whistleblower thing on a shareholder lawsuit thing. Again, it was 9-0. It wasn't bad. Again, this was another one. This is a Gorsuch opinion. This was the one that I, again, was particularly surprised that the court took at all, because this usually gets kind of kicked out at the lower court level with no problem. The fact that it survived a lower court challenge made it all but certain the Supreme Court was going to take this case and smack it out of the park, because it's not the kind of claim that usually survives even in a lower court situation. So I wasn't surprised about that case at all.
Two things we're looking out for, obviously, the Supreme Court's decision regarding affirmative action, as well as another aspect of the Voting Rights Act, correct?
Yes, those are two of the three big ones. We're still waiting for. I think the third big one is the Indian Child Welfare Act, basically whether white people can adopt Native children against the will of Native communities who don't want to let white people adopt their children. That's another huge case coming up. But the two that you mentioned, obviously very big. The Supreme Court is going to overturn affirmative action this month. That is almost certain. They're going to overturn it. I believe Clarence Thomas is going to end up writing that opinion, although John Roberts might want to have a say in it as well. I believe it's going to be 6-3. And I believe they're going to do it without actually overturning the discrimination that Asian American AAPI students do face at some of these universities. The record was clear that AAPI students do not face discrimination because of affirmative action. That was actually established at the lower courts. The lawsuits were against two universities, Harvard University and University of North Carolina. In the University of North Carolina situation, they found that Asian American students were actually more likely to get into school than black students. So the argument that affirmative action was taking their spots simply failed its first contact with reality in North Carolina. In Harvard, they did find that there was a metric that Harvard was using that was potentially discriminatory against Asian American students. It has nothing to do with affirmative action. It's this other metric that I believe Harvard University shouldn't use when putting together its class. What's going to happen this month is that the Supreme Court is going to overturn affirmative action, saying that it's discriminatory against Asian American students, but leave this metric in place that is actually discriminatory against AAPI students. That is the depth and the level of the hypocrisy that comes out of the Supreme Court and Clarence Thomas in particular. On the voting rights case, I do believe it is very likely that the Supreme Court will vitiate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. That's the section of the Voting Rights Act that just allows you to sue for racial discrimination in voting. It's the kind of basic operational factor of the Voting Rights Act. I believe that's going down this term. This month, I believe John Roberts will write that. If you look at the kind of tea leaves of who's written what case from when, it looks like Roberts has kept that case to himself. And for all the people, all the media people, especially all the generally kind of mainstream media people, especially, who tend to act like Roberts is some kind of moderate good guy influence on the Supreme Court, make no mistake, John Roberts has been an enemy of Black people voting for his entire legal career. Indeed, his first job after he finished clerking was to work for the Reagan White House, arguing against an expansion to the Voting Rights Act that was eventually pushed through, that was conceived of by the late Lonnie Guinier, that was so popular that even Ronald Reagan had to sign that expansion of the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was confirmed under George W. Bush by a voice vote. These are bedrock American principles that even Republicans agree with, but not John Roberts. John Roberts has been our enemy on voting rights for his entire life, and he's going to continue to be our enemy this month.
Last point here, Elie, and that is this here. I spend lots of time trying to connect the dots and explain to people public policy, how these things work, and why these things matter. And you got some people out here, you got some Black folks out here who say, well, you know, I don't see what the big deal is. It was performative with Biden appointing a Black woman to the Supreme Court. Ketanji Brown Jackson is no big deal. I'm trying to explain to people how one federal judge could make a ruling that literally goes out across the entire country. And so just take 60 seconds and explain to the simple Simons out there who don't quite understand the impact of when it comes to who's the president, who controls the Senate, and how who they pick to be federal judges for life can have a direct impact on the life of Black folks.
If there's anything you care about in terms of the Black agenda, whether or not that be voting rights, whether or not that be climate equality and justice and fairness, whether or not that be gun reform, gun safety, police brutality, police reform, all of it ends up in front of the Supreme Court, all of it. And so if you let Republicans control the Supreme Court, as they do now, what you're saying is that you're giving Republicans a veto on the other two branches of government. There's not a law you can pass that the Supreme Court cannot overturn if it deems fit. So all the activism and effort and push around things that matter to our communities, whether they be jobs, whether they be voting rights, whatever you want to say, all of that is subject to the whims of 5 Supreme Court justices. And right now, Republicans have 6. So as long as you let Republicans pick the court, then you're going to get nothing. That is the brass tacks of it all. If you let Republicans control the court, you get nothing. And I just need people to understand that. Need people to understand the importance of even one extra justice. Look at today, where Ketanji Brown Jackson, first Black woman on the court, appointed by Joe Biden, was the only voice today defending labor, defending the rights of unions to strike. That's how important even one justice can be, because even though she lost, she has laid now the groundwork for what one would hope will eventually be overturning this terrible decision today by her argument, by her scholarship, and by her fire, even today as she stood alone on the Supreme Court.
Elie Mystal, Justice Correspondent for The Nation. We appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. We'll talk with our panel. Also cover other news of the day. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be sure to support us. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also support us by joining my Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. Send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Farquhar, executive producer of Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's bring in my panel here. Glad to have them on today's show. Welcome back. He was out last week, but glad to have Dr. Greg Carr back in the joint. Of course, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Greg, glad to see you here. Also, folks, on today's show, of course, I'm sure you got a lot to say about the Supreme Court. Of course, she's been, just out and about and hanging out with Beyonce over in Paris and just, traveling the world. Give it up for Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show out of Washington, D.C. Glad to have Reese with us. You got her parents stand, Dr. Juliana Malvo, Dean, College of Ethnic Studies, California State University, Los Angeles. Glad to have all three of you here. Greg, I'll start with you, Ohio State law school graduate, teaching law class there at Howard University Law School. I want to really stay on the importance of these courts because, I've been here in Atlanta last couple of days, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. They've been having their Southern Conference tied to the Tommy Dortch Institute that they opened at Clark Atlanta University. And what people need to understand, and we've been talking about these elections, what is happening right now is probably the greatest or the gravest moment for African Americans in terms of a legal system targeting black people since racist tried to stop Jim Crow, tried to stop Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. The legal fights, the NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, the Transformative Justice Coalition, and all of these legal groups the fight that they are engaged in is literally hand-to-hand combat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's intellectual warfare. The extreme right wings, as you heard Elie say, Clarence Thomas in particular, don't believe the administrative state should exist. Last year, they eviscerated the Environmental Protection Agency, if you remember, in the West Virginia versus EPA course, saying that the EPA doesn't have much right to regulate emissions. If you remember, also in terms of unions, they've been going after unions for a very long time. This is their swing and swipe at, as Elie said, the National Labor Relations Board. A couple of years ago, 2018, they, in the California case with the California Teachers Association, the AFSCME case, they said that if you work at an employer, you don't have a responsibility, or you're not obligated to pay union dues. So they've been doing this little by little. This current term, and we covered all of this when they argued the cases last year on the Black Table with Angie Porter and Lethea Watkins. We went through all these oral arguments. He mentioned he didn't, the independent state legislature case, which they might back off on now that they got this traitor out of Raleigh to flip her vote and move from Democrat to Republican in North Carolina. But that one is really perhaps the most potentially absurd case on the docket. If they were to say, for example, that the state legislatures can insert themselves in federal elections without any supervision by any Supreme Court, state or federal, you're talking about the end of the republic as in terms of a legal check and balance system, which is fine with me. I mean, this thing's going to have to be remade. I really do think that. Finally, the First Amendment case, the creative, the Alennis case out of where the website person is like, I don't know if I want to design websites for gay people. I mean, that First Amendment case is very serious. And of course, as Elie said, the SFFA versus Harvard versus North Carolina, they're going to get rid of affirmative action. It really doesn't bother me as much because I've always worked in black spaces. So, you know, our applications will probably go up. But the bottom line is this. When you see Ketanji Brown Jackson write as she wrote today, what you're seeing, as Elie said, is someone who's putting a marker down for the future. And so where we are now is we can't take any more losses if we're serious about the question of rule of law. They're very comfortable now. And we're seeing the face that this is a 50-year project that they've reached culmination. And what we're about to see in the next month, is going to make what happened over the last 30, 40 years look like a throat clearing.
Julian, one of the things, we talked about this on the panel yesterday here in Atlanta, and we were always just talking about connecting the dots. And look, talking about the courts, that's not sexy. But people really need to understand. There is not a single, if you think about any law that is passed on the city level, the county level, the state level, federal level, because we got 3 branches, folks can sue and stop things from happening, and then it goes to these courts. And if you've got a lot of these conservative judges ruling, hard-fought battles on the city, county, state, national level can be eroded if the courts rule a different way. And people need to understand that it's the very people who we vote for who are the ones who are appointing or confirming, especially federal judges. We also have state judicial elections. We just saw the Wisconsin court flip, if you will. North Carolina, Democrats could have had a 6-1 majority. It became 4-3 in 2018. 2022, it flipped. Now it's 4-3 Republican. And those Republicans were so political. They were so activist, if you will. I'm using the same words the rights use, that the so-called Democratic Supreme Court of North Carolina made a decision a few months ago. The Republicans, the moment they got control, reversed the decision from just a few months ago. And so people need, and so that's going to impact black folks when it comes to voting, when it comes to political gerrymandering, racial gerrymandering. We can go on and on and on. And so I just need people who are looking at elections need to understand we can't have 1 million black people in Florida sitting out elections. You can't have almost 400,000 in South Carolina. We can't have, several 100,000 in Louisiana and North Carolina, and we can go on and on and on, because the other folks, they are going to the polls because they know about the power of the courts.
Roland, I think I've told this story on the show a couple of other times about a young sister who approached me at the Democratic Convention in 2016 and said to me she could not vote for Hillary because she did not like her. And she went on to say a bunch of other stuff. And so she said she just wasn't going to vote at all. 2 years later, she called me. She had been a Bennett student and said, Doc, what are we going to do about our abortion rights after that man appointed Gorsuch? And I said to her, I'm over 60. I don't have abortion rights. You should have thought about that when you chose not to vote. So many folks don't get it. You don't have to like the candidate. You have to look at what the implication of the candidate's presence is. Greg is right to talk about the unions. A black man in a union earns a third more than a black man who is not in a union. A black woman in a union earns 25% more than a black woman who is not in a union. Unions are about people not having individual voices. Everybody can't go to their employer, like some of us can, and say, I want more money. The collective bargaining agreement basically preserves economic rights. And so folks have been very short-sighted about looking at what they get from voting. Meanwhile, as you just said, any decision that's made at any level can be approached to or basically challenged in the Supreme Court. So even when you have good Democrats in municipal government, in city government, those decisions can be challenged. And what we've had is a massive indifference. The people in Florida who stay home, in Texas who stay home. You stay home, and now they're saying you cannot have diversity offices on state-funded universities. The affirmative action thing, we've been fighting this at higher ed for a very long time, and blessings to Brother Carr, who does work in a black space, but everybody doesn't. In Texas, they're not going to have that. And that what does that mean in terms of the black and brown presence in higher education, not only as students, but more importantly, as faculty and administrators who have the right to make discretionary decisions. So anybody who does not vote, don't talk to me. It really is almost kind of disgusting to see how we give our power away. Reverend Jackson used to always say, the same hands that pick peaches can pick presidents, but we choose not to pick.
That's right.
It really is an important thing, Reese, and I get these folks and they love playing their games. Oh, you trying to be on the Democratic plantation. They ain't never done nothing for us. And they start going all that sort of stuff. And I will happily sit down and go, conservative judges, liberal judges. Now, let's have a conversation on what they rule on. Like, if you want to have that conversation, we can do that. That's not a problem. And so when I hear the people say, Biden ain't done nothing for black people, look at the black farmers. Okay, what happened? It was passed by Congress. It was signed into law by Biden. White supremacist Stephen Miller and others, they sued. Guess who's going to hear the federal lawsuit? Federal judges. And it's likely going to go to the Supreme Court. So for all the people, again, who say, man, that voting stuff don't matter, okay, and I'll take the folks talk about reparations. That money you could, if you had money that for those black farmers, that was to repair. What happened? They sued. The courts are going to hear any lawsuit. So you can't say, I want to see public policy. I want to see Biden do all this for black people. And guess what? They sued student loans. That right now is before the Supreme Court as well. So again, take your pick. Take your pick. Black farmers, student loans, environmental decisions. We can go on and on and on. It's going before the Supreme Court. But feel free to sit at home and don't vote and then wonder why the Supreme Court rules the way they do, why a federal judge rules the way they do.
And I would like to point out that not only are they overturning things that are for black people, but those specific things like the farmers relief, like the student loan relief, it was implied that Black people benefit. All they have to do is make the case that Black people will benefit disproportionately to get it overturned by these conservative judges. And so this whole notion that you're supposed to see stuff black, 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 black in neon letters, when even using the words underserved or other euphemisms for Black have resulted in those relief packages or those bills being overturned, is kind of just dumb. And I'm really kind of sick of explaining this basic shit to y'all over and over and over again, when the other side, which I don't think the other side is smarter. Republicans are not smarter. A lot of these backwoods MAGA people ain't got two marbles to rub together in their brains, okay, to make an informed decision. And yet they somehow get, and it's clicking to them, the importance of courts when it's not clicking to everybody else. And that's what is mind-blowing to me, how these inbred dumbasses have figured out where the power is, and yet we have to beg and plead every time, every 2 years, every year, every 4 years for us to vote for our survival. This was exactly what we said was going to happen in 2020. When we said that, hey, Trump has appointed all of these judges, this has remade the courts for a generation. With that being said, where there is still some semblance of relief is at the state level, is at the local level, to the extent where you don't have a Republican majority, like in Texas, that's going to now usurp Democratic control in places like Houston, or in Mississippi, where they usurp Democratic control in Jackson. We don't have national citizenship in this country anymore. That was done as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned. Your rights depend on where you are located in this country and what kind of government you have voted for locally, all right? But that still does not absolve you of your responsibility to send the right people to Congress, and you just do the math on who's supporting what, to Congress to at least act as a check on the Supreme Court. Because even though the Supreme Court can overturn things, the Congress can still put in new laws and put in new protections. But we haven't been able to get that done because we have not had the majority that we needed in the Senate and in the House at the same time.
Roland, I should mention.
I'll end it with this. Greg, go ahead.
While you're there in Atlanta, remember you talked about this last week. Nancy Abudu just got appointed to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, even though Joe Manchin didn't vote for her. How's this the first Black woman on the Court of Appeals, the 11th Circuit, which is over Georgia and Alabama? So while you're sitting there in Atlanta, Nancy Abudu, who worked at the Southern Poverty Law Center there in Atlanta, is now on the court. Like you say, elections don't matter? Come on now. That is the court that covers Georgia and Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they can still, Greg,
absolutely. And
appealed. They can still be appealed. People can still go to the Supreme Court. So even though we have progressive state courts, we still have a Supreme Court that, quite frankly, is anti-Black, anti-progressive, anti-economic rights, and that's not going to change anytime soon. It's disturbing, but it's where it is. I love the fact that this sister is there, but decision she makes can still be appealed.
Well, again, we're going to walk folks through so they can understand why all these elections matter. Hold tight 1 second, folks. When we come back, we're going to talk about this county in Georgia that continues to have allegations of brutal treatment of inmates. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network, live from Atlanta.
That was a pivotal time. I remember Kevin Hart telling me that. He's like, man, what you doing, man? You got to stay on stage. And I was like, I'm young, thinking, I'm good. And he was absolutely right.
What show was you at the time?
This was one-on-one.
Got it.
During that time.
So you're doing one-on-one, going great, you making money, you like...
I'm like, I don't need to leave. I don't need to leave from, Wednesday, Thursday to Sunday. I didn't want to do that. It was just like, I'm going to stay here. Or I didn't want to finish work Friday, fly out, go do a gig Saturday, Sunday. I was like, I don't have to do that. And I lost a little bit of that hunger that I had in New York. I would hit all the clubs, run around. Sometimes me and Chappelle or me and this one or that one, we'd go to the Comedy Cellar at 1 a.m. And that was our life. We loved it. You do 2 shows in Manhattan, go to Brooklyn, leave Brooklyn, go to Queens, go to Jersey. And I got complacent. I was like, I got this money, I'm good. I don't need to go chase that, because that money wasn't at the same level that I was making. But what I was missing was that training.
Yes.
Was that.
And it wasn't the money.
It was the money. You know, it was that. That's what I needed.
Coming up next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network,
Shanita Hubbard. We're talking about the ride or die chick. We're breaking it down. The stereotype of the strong Black woman.
Some of us are operating with it as if it's a badge of honor. Like, you even hear Black women like aspiring to be this ride or die chick, aspiring to be this strong Black woman trope at their own expense.
Next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Frank.
I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, one of the stories that we have covered a lot, it really has been dealing with brutality in jails in this country and in prisons. In this particular place here in Georgia has been absolutely crazy. It's called Camden County, folks, and they have had numerous examples, allegations of brutality when it comes to inmates. And the fundamental problem that we're seeing is that on the state level, they're not doing a great job, frankly, on holding these people accountable. Luckily, you have the Department of Justice. They've been very aggressive in doing so. But here in Camden County in Georgia, this video is of correction officers beating Jared Hobbs in the jail cell. Took place in November. He had been arrested for speeding, driving with a suspended license, and possessing a controlled substance on September 3rd. 3 of the deputies involved were fired, arrested, and charged with the incident. Harry Daniels is representing these men. He joins me now from Georgia. Again, Harry, when we played this video, we had you on, we talked about it, and now action is being taken. But again, the brutality that we are seeing in jails in Georgia, in South Carolina, in Tennessee, I mean, we can go state, Mississippi, state by state. It's absolutely astounding.
Yes, Roland, that's absolutely correct. Thanks for having me on. This video with Jared Hobbs, we was able to get this video released through the reason because the officers actually beating Jared Hobbs. You can see on the screen, they accused and charged Jared Hobbs with assault on officers. And that video was sent up to United States Attorney's Office where Jared Hobbs was being violated for probation violation, and the defense attorney got it out to us. I say all this to say this, but for this Jared Hobbs incident, the other incidents would have not been discovered or disclosed. So this incident with Jared Hobbs, it basically was once we revealed it, it was an avalanche of inmate assaults. Recently, 2 deputies have been indicted for beating other officers. One deputy recently has been charged for beating inmates. So these type of incidents are continuing to happen in Camden County over and over. It's no, I know the GBI, as you stated, it's been involved. Charges and arrests have taken place and termination, but this is not bad apples. This is a bad apple orchard. They talk about the jail administrator. He can't control the jail. Well, let's talk about the sheriff. The sheriff is a bus driver. He can't drive the bus. He need to get off the bus. So we have been able to uncover some of these heinous beatings of these inmates. And these are not just black inmates or white inmates. These are old, young, different religions across the board. And these are beatings, severe beatings. We have one of our clients whose name is Brian Fletcher. And Roland, they beat this man almost to death. He got black eyes, lacerated forehead. They stomped his chest. This man is probably 60 years old. There's no regards whatsoever for human life inside this jail.
And again, pursuing charges and firing is one thing, but you really have to have substantive changes. What are county officials saying? Are they saying anything?
Well, they're not really saying anything. The district attorney, and this is the same DA that prosecuted the killers of Ahmaud Arbery, and this same sheriff, he carries the atmosphere, carries the position of when his inmates, when the officers are engaged in some type of misconduct, he give them 1-day suspension and bring them back on the job. But once the videos come out, the district attorney invokes the Georgia GBI coming and investigate him, and these people charged with felonies. So his job is supposed to stop criminal activity, and he's allowed criminals to be in his agency, in his office. So I don't really think that the sheriff, one, he's complicit, and he can't, I ain't gonna say control. He's definitely not doing anything to remedy the situation. That's why the Department of Justice had to be called in. That's why we continue to illuminate these cases to the Department of Justice for them to come in and hopefully, and I'll be honest with you, shut this jail down, and somebody come in and take it over, revamp policies. That is the goal, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if a person's in jail. They maintain the presumption of innocence and to proving guilty. And even then, you go off to the proper correction, you still have Eighth Amendment rights from cruel and unusual punishment. When you're beating a middle-aged man or beating a young man because he's answering questions about his phone privileges, the things that's happening here, it's unconscionable, it's unconstitutional, and it's dangerous not just to the inmates inside Camden County, but it's dangerous to everybody here in the state of Georgia.
All right. Harry Daniels, we certainly appreciate it. Certainly keep us abreast of what happens with this case.
Appreciate it, Roland. Thanks for having me on, brother.
All right. Thanks a bunch. All right, folks, we come back. The debt ceiling fight, the House passes, now it goes on to the Senate. Now, I have no idea. Republicans literally, y'all, are saying we don't have enough money for defense spending. They're lying. We'll tell y'all what the latest is. It's just incredible. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Me, Sherry Shepard, with Sammy Roman. I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, folks, the House, they, of course, moved on the debt ceiling after they were able to get Democrats to pretty much vote for it. Republicans were voting against it. But it has, again, it has passed the House, now moves on to the United States Senate. Okay, now here's the problem. Now you have all of these, you got these Republicans who are whining and complaining and saying that, oh, this is an awful deal, it's bad. It's hurting us. It's helping China. I mean, I'm listening to some of the most stupid stuff you've ever seen. Now, of course, you got Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and Majority Leader Chuck Schumer saying now it's time for the Senate to step up and do their part to ensure the United States does not default.
Time is a luxury the Senate does not have if we want to prevent default. June 5th is less than 4 days away. At this point, any needless delay or any last-minute holdups would be an unnecessary and even dangerous risk. And any change to this bill that forces us to send it back to the House would be entirely unacceptable. It would almost guarantee default. So again, the Senate will stay in session until we send a bill avoiding default to the President's desk, and we will keep working until the job is done.
Last night, an overwhelming majority of our House colleagues voted to pass the agreement Speaker McCarthy reached with President Biden. In doing so, they took an urgent and important step in the right direction for the health of our economy and the future of our country. The Fiscal Responsibility Act avoids the catastrophic consequences of a default on our nation's debt. And just as importantly, it makes the most serious headway in years toward curbing Washington Democrats' reckless spending addiction. The bill the House just passed has the potential to cut federal spending by $1.5 trillion. Now the Senate has a chance to make that important progress a reality.
So now you have Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator Susan Collins, and others saying, Reese, that, oh, this is going to just destroy the military. I mean, we've got to have more spending for the military. Now, mind you, the debt limit deal increases the Pentagon's budget by 3%. The Pentagon would be getting $886 billion, an all-time high. Right. But let me help some people out. Today is June 1st, y'all. Today is June 1st. Just 7 months ago, not 7 years, just 7 months ago, the House and Senate negotiators added $45 billion to the budget.
Right.
It's $847 billion. They added $45 billion more than what Biden was asking for. And Reese, here we are 7 months later, and they're saying, oh my God, we gotta have more. And here's the crazy thing. People, check this out. U.S. defense spending has increased by $71 billion from 2021 to 2022. I mean, damn, Reese, really? More? We are nearing $900 billion for defense, and these people swear it's never enough.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit, and I'm really actually sick of the posturing around it. I mean, for Christ's sakes, like you just pointed out, they have given more defense spending than even what President Biden has put in his budget every year. So they're just trying to do whatever they can to try to make this as painful as possible for the Democrats. These are the same Republicans that actually voted against Republican benefits for, benefits for veterans until Jon Stewart shamed the hell out of them, and that went viral. And so they're not really concerned about military preparedness. They're not concerned about veterans. There's nothing more than posturing. And the reality is this is a Republican deal. This is the only deal that can make it through the Republican-controlled House. And unfortunately, Speaker McCarthy is so weak and feckless that he isn't able to get a majority of his crazy-ass Republicans to vote. So they had to put in a deal that could get some Democratic votes as well. And so the fact that Republicans are throwing such a big stink over a McCarthy led deal is really ridiculous. And it just goes to show how accustomed Republicans have been to being unserious about governing. And then the other thing I just want to say is for anybody who is not satisfied with the deal, this is what you get when you let the Republicans take control of the House. We had an opportunity to really make transformative change with not at least having to deal with punk ass Manchin, and then Sinema, who has Ruben Gallego on her ass, would have been a little bit more inclined to play ball with Democrats, having at least an extra vote on the Democratic side in the Senate. And if we had Hakeem Jeffries as the speaker, we would be looking at a very different conversation here. We would be looking at the child tax credit. We would be looking at student loan debt being extended as opposed to being ended. But we didn't do that. We didn't do what we needed to do in 2022. And so the Republicans are in charge of the House. This is as good as it's going to get for everybody involved.
That's right.
You know what? I really hate just stuck on stupid people. Julian, somebody called The Dissent on our YouTube channel just said, Roland, I hate that you argue this point. Stop it. They are why you sleep safely at night and why people are walking for days to get here. That's bullshit. Here's why, Julian. We spend more on national defense than the next 10 countries behind us combined.
You know, Roland, stuck on stupid is a very nice way of saying GD ignorant, because that's what we're dealing with here. I mean, when we think about it, the military didn't even want the extra money. I mean, they said, we're going to give you some more money 7 months ago. Military's like, well, gee, what are we going to do with it? The fact of the, let's use a couple of words. Let's talk about military industrial complex. One, let's talk about predatory capitalism. You know, it's my favorite word. Two, why do we need to talk about predatory capitalism? Because if you did an audit of the military, the question is, who gains from this $900 billion behemoth called the military? People like Bechtel and other companies who are manufacturing $1,000 toilets when you could go to Home Depot and get one for $75. I mean, and let me just go down. So we're really talking about a profit center that moves away from people and towards exploitation and oppression. And when you look at what's going on, I may want to give a shout out to Congresswoman Jay Paul, who talked about how this thing, even as it's been tweaked and compromised and everything, it's going to hurt women. It's going to hurt women of color. It's going to hurt older women. Even if you cut one food stamp, somebody is going to be hit. And then this whole notion of a work requirement, give me a you-know-what break. A work requirement. Where is the bureaucracy to impose this work requirement? Who will enforce this work requirement? And will they go after Becky or Keisha when they decide that somebody did not conform to the work requirement? This is just specious and ignorant, and their whining about the military really speaks to just the fact they cannot read, they cannot add, they cannot think. Our country is moving in the wrong direction, right fast. The wrong direction, right fast. And again, as Reese said, here's the bottom line. You don't vote, you get what you get. Voting has consequences. Actions have consequences. The consequences that we're experiencing are the consequences of people not coming out in 2022. We knew these people were going to do what they said they were going to. They said what they were going to do. This is not mystery. They said what they were going to do. They told us what they were going to do, and they did. They kept their word. Who didn't keep their word? Democrats. Right. Constituency.
So
Greg.
That's right.
So, Greg, here's the thing that people have to understand. President Eisenhower laid this out, the military-industrial complex.
He did.
I don't think people understand that what the military people did was they said, oh, we got you. There is a military contractor in every congressional district in America.
That's right.
So that means they're like, oh, you cut us? You're cutting jobs. People need to understand you always got to follow the money, and that's what's going on right here. There is no reason in the world the Pentagon should be getting more money out of this debt ceiling agreement. You cannot tell me You got an extra $45 billion. So you went from $802 billion to $847 billion 7 months ago, and now you need to go to $886 billion. Come on, man, come on.
Roland, y'all were having that conversation last night when you were talking about the Halliburtons of the world, the Blackwaters of the world. The Pentagon's not getting that money. Companies are getting that money. And what Reese said is so very important. You know, what Reese said is so very important. When you don't vote, this is what you get. You know, watching the vote yesterday and Leader Jeffries sitting there until the last possible moment to see whether this feckless clown out of California could get his nut caucus, his Klan caucus, some people call it the Freedom Caucus, the Klan caucus to vote. And as cool as the other side of the pillow, he waited until he needed to put his green card up, and that released the Democrats to come in and vote. And it also overwhelmed in terms of numbers so that the Summer Lees and the Jared Pauls and others and the Ayanna Presleys could stand for the people who are the most vulnerable. What Dr. Malveaux, what you just said, of course, and Julianne Malveau's been writing about this for years. The most vulnerable are the ones who are in harm's way. Food stamp work requirements? What are you talking about? Black women, brown men, and not just the most vulnerable, black and brown people, and not just black and brown people. You're talking about women. You're talking about children. This is the challenge. But of course, they could still vote their principles, as will Bernie Sanders in the Senate side. He's not going to vote for it, nor should he, because they have the votes. Finally, unless, to the point that, again, Dr. Malveaux just raised, these predatory capitalists who have whispered into the ears of their wholly owned subsidiaries, little Lynn Graham out of South Carolina, Wicker out of Mississippi, wholly owned subsidiaries of defense who are saying, we're awake against China. Let me tell you something. Jamie Dimon was in China yesterday talking about how we're going to prop up the Chinese economy, because if you don't understand that this is a global network of capitalism, you don't understand anything. This ain't got nothing to do with politics. And as you said, Roland, it's all about these lobbyists and these companies who own the United States Senate. Tim Kaine, who don't be arguing about nothing, he was like, what the Y'all let Joe Manchin building a $6 billion pipeline that goes through my state. You didn't even call me. Joe Manchin votes with the Democrats about 70% of the time. One of the times he didn't vote is when Nancy Abudu was up for the appeals court, by the way. But is 70% better than 100% against, which will happen to Jim Justice gets that seat from him? Yes. This is a messy, funky ass business. Reese, I don't know how you get up in this thing, but I'm glad that you're up in it, because we have to understand that when it gets up close like that, it's funky. This ain't a popularity contest. And unless we all go out and exercise our franchise, it's going to get worse. So don't complain when you come out of the deal with at least your drawers on. I know you wanted a suit. I know you wanted a dress, but you got on some drawers. Why? Because you could have been butt-ass naked. And if they win a few more elections, you ain't even going to be naked. You're going to be out the game completely.
If you don't preach.
Well, I appreciate people who are in Congress who have the guts to say enough is enough. We don't need to give the Defense Department more money. I mean, folks, this is just utterly ridiculous. It is. And look, I get strong defense, but my God, I mean, you can't sit here and go from 802 to 847 to 886 and still yell, oh my God, it's not enough. That's ridiculous. All right, y'all. Gotta go to the break. We come back. Bernice King speaks to the National Black Coalition of Civil Participation today. Also, y'all, our man, lawyer Exavier Pope, you've seen him on our show. Ooh, Lord, he done got these folks stirred up on social media because he objected to an Uber driver texting him, say, can you cash app me some gas money to drop off your food? We're going to talk to him right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On the next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. How big a role does fear play in your life? Your relationship to it and how to deal with it can be the difference between living a healthy life, a balanced life, or a miserable one.
Whenever the power of fear comes along, you need to put yourself in that holding pattern and breathe, examine, find out if there's something that your survival instinct requires you to either fight or take flight.
Facing your fears and making them work for you instead of against you. That's all next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, we're the Critter Fixers. I'm Dr. Bernard Hodges.
And I'm Dr. Terrence Ferguson.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, y'all. Social media has been just talking, going crazy the last 24 hours because Chicago attorney Exavier Pope, you've seen him on our show as a panelist numerous occasions. Let's just say he took exception to an Uber driver texting him saying, "Can you cash app me some money to get some gas to drop your food off?" Xavier joins us right now. Xavier, glad to have you here. First of all, man, clearly you did not expect this thing to blow up the way it's blown up.
I'm just doing what social media has been a place where many consumers frustrated with the bad customer service, having to push many different buttons, customer service calls being taken outside of the country, have gone to social media to resolve their to resolve their customer service complaints. And that's been where they've been the most responsive. And so after contacting them via the app and them not doing anything as the situation was happening, I took to Twitter to really talk to them. And eventually it became a conversation now that everyone seems to be having.
So folks, so this guy, and you posted these screenshots, and he asked you to send him some money via Cash App so he can have enough gas to drop your order off. But he said, "Yo, it's your Uber driver. I can't make it to you unless I can somehow get gas money." Then he said, "Hello." Is this you saying this is unprofessional? He says, "I understand. I'm very sorry, but let me know what you want me to do." Okay, and you're like, "I want you to drop my food off." And so then you post it, and all these people are attacking you, saying you should have sent the guy the money.
That's not your expectation when you get food delivered, Roland. You pay for your money up front. You pay for any tip, and then you give additional tip if you want to after that food has already arrived. Now, understand, Roland, as someone who deals in a space where I don't want to be asked to do the business of this company. I understand workers and they go through different issues in a gig economy and people have it hard. But Roland, if you have someone ask you this, and then on top of this, Roland, they were calling me incessantly and they were texting me. So at that point, I didn't feel necessarily comfortable, and it didn't feel like this was charity. It felt a little bit more like a shakedown. I'm not going to deliver your food unless you pay me. And so at some point I was contacted, and Uber has a safety line, and I contacted them about the safety issue and say, "Hey, this is what's going on." They didn't respond to me. And at some point I asked them, "Hey, don't deliver the food. I don't want it anymore." And then at some hour later, he just happens to show up where I was. And then at that point, I didn't feel safe. And also the food was probably incredibly cold. And after telling him not to come, I felt that my food might have been tampered with. So I didn't want the food to be delivered. Anybody in my situation would have done so. I think we have a lot of fake self-righteous people online that are saying this was something that they would have done ahead of time. I don't believe it. And also, Roland, we live in this Elon Musk Twitter. A lot of people were really sympathetic when I first posted this online. But at some point, we had an army of trolls, still army of trolls coming at me and changing the narrative of the conversation. And that's where disinformation is happening in Elon Musk era, is that the trolls are setting the conversation. And that's when some people came in and then responded to the trolls because they felt like, oh, this is the winning argument. And so this is what I should support to join the herd in this conversation, when that may be maybe not necessarily what they really believe or think about that particular issue, so they could be on the right side of the issue. I am unmoved, Roland. I'm definitely not letting somebody roll up at my crib with some cold food trying to get up on my house. I'm sorry.
Well, and look, here's a perfect example. And again, I know somebody might say, Roland, you can't compare the two, but look, we've done shoots, we've done events, we've done custom content for folks like Coca-Cola and General Motors, and guess what? We did some stuff for General Motors in November and December. We finished in February. The check is arriving today. There's some other people, because there's some other clients, they pay 90-day term. Look, I have a business. I actually pay my freelancers in a lot faster than a lot of other people do. A lot of times, I can tell you, I've had some freelance gigs where you do the work and you don't get paid for 30 to 45 days. And so you've had people attacking you, saying, or you're wrong because you don't understand how Uber pays these people. And a lot of people don't have the money to pay. But people have to understand this. There's a reality to having a business. And I can tell you that what happens is when we do something, my expenses are in. Look, if we're doing a shoot in Essence, last year we did one in Essence, guess what? I had to pay for the hotel rooms. It was $40,000. I had to pay for flights. I had to pay per diem. I had to pay the crew we brought down there. The check didn't come for 120 days. So I understand what that is like, but that's actually what it means when you're in business. It's not set up for me to say, hey, client, I need you to actually send me the money before I do the work so I can then do the work. That's just not how it works.
It's not how it works, Roland. And no one should be extorted for their food. and I think that there's so much standing of corporations of people in this country. This is the same group. We'll say, hey, we can bail out corporations, we can bail out banks, but then when it's time for people to get a bailout on their student loans or extending SNAP benefits, now people have a problem. We worship the rich and the powerful in this country, and then we look down on people that they don't have much. So I think it's really interesting that people came at me, criticized me for being classist and elitist. Look at the corporation. Look at the policies they would have that would put someone in a position that they don't have money for gas, and then trying to pass that on to me when I'm just trying to get some breakfast.
I'm going to go to my panel here, and I'm going to start with you, Julian. What's been interesting to me, I don't know how y'all feel about this here, but have y'all noticed that like now you go to a lot of places and you go to the counter and you order your food, and there are people now expecting you to tip, and all you did was play. And again, let me be clear. Look, my grandmother had a catering business. I started when I was 7 and stopped when I was 30. I worked at Wendy's when I was in college. So I understand the whole, working in fast food restaurants, stuff like that. But it's gotten to the point where, like, there are some people who literally expect you to tip them, and you the one did all the work.
Hello. I'm a labor economist, and of course, I'm on the side of workers at all times. At the same time, I'm a realist and a consumer, and some of this stuff is nonsense. I don't know if the brother heard me laughing while he was talking about this, because it's absurd that someone should ask for the money up front. But let me tell you what happened to me last month. I had to go to Baltimore. to come back to the Dulles Airport. The sister said, "Do you mind me stopping to get gas?" Of course, I'm trying to be reasonable. I said, "No." Do you know because of the waiting time for her to get the gas and then go into the place and pick her up some snacks, it was $45 more than they initially quoted. And so that's called oppression pass along. People are passing this stuff along. I was on a plane where I bought some chips and something, and it was $3.50 or $4, and they had tip. I am not tipping airline stewardesses. I'm sorry, it just ain't happening. It's absurd. It's exploitation. I have much sympathy for the workers, But the one you should be mad at is not the brother who wouldn't give you gas money. You should be mad at the folks that you are working for. Like he said, all he wanted was some hot breakfast. And as he said, when they left it on the sidewalk like that, we know that it was cold. So he wasn't getting what he paid for anyway. Yesterday, it was Amazon shorted me half of my order. So I got pork chops, which, as you know, Ro, I do not eat pork chops. I got stuff that I didn't order, and I had to fight with them for 1 hour to get my refund for the food I wanted. And the woman was like, "Well, we give you a $5 credit." I was like, "Oh, hell no. You're going to give me more than that." And they did. But the point is that somehow workers are feeling beleaguered. We're feeling beleaguered, but the capitalists are making the money. And this brother was absolutely right to hold his ground.
Right.
Brother man, and anybody who's mad at you, I tried not to use profanity on this program, that there's a word that begins with F that they really ought to look at.
Reese, so let me just put a little twist on this. So imagine you order a pizza from Pizza Hut or Domino's, and the Domino's or the Pizza Hut driver say, "Hey, I ain't bringing your pizza unless you send me some gas." And you're like, "Don't your ass work for Pizza Hut or Domino's?"
I mean, it's ridiculous. This could be a card in my next edition of my AmITrippingGame.com if y'all want to cop that. But honestly, this is why I don't do the food delivery stuff, because every time something goes viral, it's some mess attached to it. You have drivers complaining about their low wages. You have people complaining about their bad experiences. I'd rather just go get my food myself. I like my food hot. I will eat my food in the car. I got a little dinner tray, which I put my food on top of, and I will enjoy my food that I picked up myself right there, and I ain't got to worry about nobody being crazy. But I do feel sympathy for you, Exavier, because they were piling on, and I 100% agree with you in terms of this disinformation and these manufactured viral moments where people start to pile on because now they think that all of these inauthentic accounts saying negative things is the way to go. That's the opinion they need to jump on. So, I mean, I think you did the right thing by at least not eating the food, because I wouldn't want nobody's food after I've been arguing with somebody for 30 minutes either.
That part.
Greg, one of the things that that is, in many ways, with stuff like this here, I'm real old school. I am. We do a lot of traveling when it comes to the show, and Anthony, who's directing, his ass is the king of his ass. Uber Eats, DoorDash, I don't know. If there's a food delivery service, I know he got the app. And so matter of fact, we were here in Atlanta in 2020, and we had rented an Airbnb, and so we had all of our equipment there. We stayed there, and they got a kitchen. So Anthony kept ordering. I was like, "Man, you better get your ass in that kitchen and cook something." I'm like, see, when I'm also old school, one of the reasons why I also want to go pick my food up, because I'm not about to sit here and order and then wait another 45, 50 minutes for people to deliver it. But the flip side is that a lot of these restaurants are getting screwed by these same companies when it comes to that. And so I would rather order from the restaurant and go pick up the food myself to ensure that company gets the total amount of money they're supposed to get.
Absolutely, Roland. I mean, Brother Pope, I sympathize with you, because I don't know what I would have done I too, like Roland, I'm an alum of Wendy's. I worked Wendy's in high school, then Arby's, and I'm from Nashville. So any of y'all know Crystals, y'all know my undergraduate job. I worked the graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'm always gonna side with the workers. If you go into Panera or the grocery store or anywhere and you see folk lined up with their phones in their hands trying to grab food and get it to you as soon as possible, this is basically, it ain't slave labor. I would not compare anything to slavery, nothing comparable to slavery, but this is capitalism. I keep probably about 10 singles in my back pocket when I leave out the house, because invariably I see people at the entrances to places asking for money. And anytime, and you know, maybe it's a scam, maybe it's a not, but what's $1 to me? What's $1 to somebody else? And I always buy the paper Street Sense, which is sold here in Baltimore and DC for the unhoused. Because when you are at the most precarious end of society, that is indefensible. And I tell you, poverty should enrage all of us. And so, yeah, I use UberEats sparingly because, you know, it's so funny. And Reese Boss Baby, I guess, is born digital. But can you imagine if we had had these apps when we were children? My mother and father probably would have put us out the house because people showing up at the house with food. And what the hell happened? I mean, we all know children who...
Hey, Greg, that ain't got nothing to do with growing up. My nieces, my dad was like, yo, hey, who the hell at the door?
That's what I'm saying.
That ain't growing up. That was last week. Listen, I did the same thing. My nieces, I was like, who the hell at my damn? And look, I got the ring. And so, man, my nieces come down and I was like, hey, where y'all asses going? Because we real black, and I know every black person on this set identify. Tell me if I'm wrong here, if in your house, didn't no damn kids, 18 or under, your ass was not supposed to open that damn door.
You talk about how to butt whip it. Protea Malvo, if you open a door without her permission, you'll be missing part of your hind part. But more than that, she had a whole thing about ordering food. The whole thing, like, we got food at home. What's wrong with you?
See, Greg. So Xavier, I gotta ask you this. So has this whole situation led to you take your ass to your kitchen and learn to cook some breakfast?
Well, the Today Show is covered by vegan cooking, Roland. So I cook all the time. I show that on the vegan Pope's Vegan Kitchen. That's been popular online, and so that's something I've always done. I mean, a lot of my videos on my food went viral over the course of the pandemic. So I'm used to cooking for myself. I love to cook. It just so happened to be, I just wanted somebody to deliver my food. And every now and then, you don't necessarily feel like cooking. Now, did I actually have to wind up cooking after not getting my food? Yeah, I did wind up cooking, but everybody don't always feel like cooking. Roland, do you remember back on Sundays when your mama didn't feel like cooking? When y'all, everybody would roll up to churches come around, like that, all those chicken places, all those places stayed in business on Sundays because folks did not feel like cooking on them Sundays.
See, Xavier, you got the wrong brother. Because, you got to understand, in my family, all the men cooked. Right. See, so, a matter of fact, I don't even recall my mama cooking on Sundays. Now, she may have cooked other days, but my daddy can cook. I started baking at 7, cooking at 8. So, and then every Sunday, we lived 8 blocks from my grandparents, so we were at that house as well. We didn't order a damn thing on Sundays. Now, other nights that may be in the case, but again, the bottom line is, but as you said, we went and picked that food up. We wasn't paying for the gas for the Popeyes driver.
That's right. That's right.
I'm gonna start making my own groceries. I'm gonna stop doing the app. Start making my own groceries after this last little experience. Like, this is a message from the Lord. Take your hind part to the grocery store, your damn self.
I will button this up with this here. Again, what this whole thing has shown, though, it has shown to as y'all have been talking about, capitalistic system, when it's those companies that are making the profits. That's why there are a lot of restaurants that refuse to even be a part of a lot of these systems because they're not making enough. I know some restaurants that say, man, we losing money on this. And so they said, why we're the ones with the food. Why are we going to sit here and lose money by hooking up with these folks here? So look, this is what we're dealing with now. So Xavier, hopefully more folk side with you on this and understand the reality of like, yeah, I'm not about to send you some money to get some gas. And especially, here's the other deal. Hell, you could send the money, then they could hit cancel.
There you go.
Absolutely. There you go, Roland. Bang, bang. Hey, my opinion may not necessarily always be popular, Roland, but I'm always going to come for what's right, and I'm going to stick to my guns.
When you order Uber Eats, tip
I understand. Yeah, absolutely. Now, and Greg, you're absolutely right. If you order Uber Eats or DoorDash or one of those, tip your driver. Absolutely. Right. But let me be real clear. To all y'all people at that register. If I walk my ass to the counter and order some food, and I got to stand there to wait for my food, I ain't paying no damn tip. I will pay a tip if you served me. The purpose of a tip is you actually did some work. Just punching the order, that ain't no work. And the new register, let me just go ahead, and first of all, let me do this here. Let me go ahead and say this here, the last point, because this bullshit is getting on my nerves, okay? How the hell we went, it used to be 15%.
How we go 18?
What? No. In some places, they done skip 18.
Yeah.
I went to a place, that shit said 20, 22, 25. I'm like, you out your damn mind.
Somebody got to pay the military industrial complex. There was a story in today's Financial Times, Amazon workers who are remote, who don't want to come back, the white collar workers are saying that they're going to do some labor actions in solidarity. And what Amazon is trying to do is separate them from the people in the warehouses and the people who can't work from home. But the people who can't work from home said, no, we are standing with them. Even though they can work from home and we can't, ultimately, we're all labor. The reason they're going up on them tips is because these places are making record profits, and they are making those record profits off of labor.
They're making record profits by suppressing wages. They're suppressing wages, and the only way people are trying to get their money is by asking for tips. But we should not encourage. First of all, the whole tipping system, as all y'all know, is based on enslavement in ways that people. The tip was optional, but you didn't get paid. That's the basis of the tipping system. So we understand exploitation basically derives off our exploitation, and we need to stand up against that. We just need to stand up against it. I have sympathy, enormous sympathy for working people. Tipping 20, 25%, blunt the dumb shit. Oh, gee, I said I wasn't going to curse.
And here's the whole deal. Pay folk right. And then just put it into the price, but that's how silly this thing goes. And then you don't even know if you get a tip, it's actually going to them or it's some little system there. All right, Xavier, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so very much. Get your ass in that kitchen.
Right on the mark, Roland.
All right, y'all, going to a break. We'll be back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Thank you.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress,
whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks. Gerard Jones, a black firefighter in Rochester, New York, has filed a racial discrimination lawsuit against the city of Rochester, the fire department, and its former captain, Jeffrey Crywey. Jones, a 15-year veteran of the police department, claiming he was forced to attend a Juneteenth party last year that featured racist tropes, witnessed harassment, and bias directed at himself and his fellow black co-workers, and saw firefighters disregard the property of black residents. Jones initially filed a legal complaint with the state Supreme Court following the Juneteenth party on July 7th. The federal lawsuit seeks unspecified damages and calls for changes in the department's policies and practices to prevent discrimination. I'm confused here, Reese. The white folks made the black folks forced to attend a Juneteenth party?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on. That sounds very strange, but if Juneteenth party is what they chose to be funky and do vandalism, I guess, to black people stuff, y'all couldn't do that on 4th of July, on Cinco de Mayo, or St. Patrick's Day. Why'd you have to pick the black holiday to act a plumb fool? That's just crazy. Pay him the money. I don't know how much he's suing for, but give him every last dime of it.
Here's the other deal for me, Julian. If there's any holiday party I'm not gonna let somebody show their ass, it's gonna be Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, I think that, like you say all the time, Roland, white people have lost their minds. They truly have. What gave them permission to think that on Juneteenth they could clown? So right on to the brother, sue them for everything they got and get a couple people fired while you're at it. Our people are just basically getting dumped on all over the place. And in the name of whatever, go along and get along, some people think we ought to take it. I'd love to see your Twitter feed sometime because, you've got a whole bunch of these incognitos who expect that we're supposed to take this nonsense, and we're not. So right on to the brother, and, we're coming up on Juneteenth. So people, hold to your principles. Juneteenth is about the belated notification that enslavement had ended. It is now a national holiday. In the state of California, it's a holiday. I'm sure it's not one in the state of Mississippi, but stand your ground and do not let white people take this over. Have your own Juneteenth celebration.
Greg, Seth the Entertainer had a certain bit when he said, I wish they would. I'm just saying, I'm just letting anybody know. One, I ain't taking no stuff off of nobody on any day. Pick any one on 365. But if there's one day I damn sure know you ain't gonna act a fool and have practicing discrimination, it's damn sure gonna be Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I'm very happy that this is a federal holiday because this is one that they can't swallow. This is about humiliation. This is about attempting to humiliate black people, and how we respond dictates the terms of what happens. 100 years ago today, was the funeral of now Brigadier General Charles Young here in Washington, D.C. I actually went out to Arlington Cemetery today to he and Ada Young's grave. Charles Young was retired by the United States military at the behest of President racist Woodrow Wilson during World War I because they did not want him to become a general. Now, of course, he ended up mentoring Benjamin Davis Sr., and Benjamin Davis Jr. graduated from West Point, the first black person to do that since Charles Young graduated in the 19th century. Charles Young got on his horse in Wilberforce, Ohio, where he was a professor at the time, and rode that horse to Washington, D.C. to make the point because they said, oh, he's got high blood pressure, he's not fit. I'm bringing all this up for a reason. They unretired him after World War I and sent him to Liberia. Then he went to Nigeria. He was working on a book, and he got sick and made transition. W.E.B. Du Bois, his very close friend, said, y'all killed Charles Young, and you attempted to humiliate Charles Young, who did his duty. He was a leader of the Buffalo Soldiers, all this stuff. I'm bringing all this up because this is about humiliation. And the black community was so enraged in how Charles Young was treated that we didn't take it lying down. And Charles Young became the fourth human being to be funeralized at Arlington at the big gathering spot there. The third person was the so-called unknown soldier. I'm raising this because if you don't take it, these crackers back up. This brother went to a party. They had a cutout of Donald Trump, and then they had two big Juneteenth flags with buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken in front of them. They lucky he didn't whip their asses. It's one thing to be in and get a lawsuit. Like Reese said, get all your money, brother. But when you show up, and then his commander said, this ain't a private event, and I want everybody here in uniform. The point they were trying to make is, these white boys make is, we want to humiliate you in front of your people, and the humiliation is the point. The only way they're going to stop this is when we stop them. Y'all stop trying to make peace with these people. You stop trying to make peace with these people. You learn a lesson from this. You show them there's a team flag and two buckets of chicken. I'm like, oh, this is great. Give me this chicken. What you gonna do? I'm getting ready to make you eat it, bro. You scared now, ain't you? You scared now, ain't you? You scared now, ain't you? Put that chicken in their mouth, boy. Yeah, anyway. But this is the great holiday because it's going to be more of this come up. Trust me. On Juneteenth, yeah. Oh, this is gonna be. We're gonna dance on.
And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say this again. I'm gonna say this again. We're gonna have the graphics. We're gonna have the graphics soon. So, folks, on June 17th in Houston at the Power Center, from 12 to 4 p.m., we're going to have our event dealing with our Juneteenth 2023 event dealing with Black economic freedom. And we also going to make a major announcement about Juneteenth with Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. So you want to come to the Power Center from 12 to 4 p.m. on June 17th. And I'm going to say this before I go to break. I need all black folks who are watching, I need y'all to understand, if y'all need lessons on how to have Juneteenth events, come talk to those of us in Texas. Okay?
No question.
Because Juneteenth was never about partying. Yes, we had concerts. Yes, we had picnics. Yes, we had barbecues. Yes, we had events. But Juneteenth, when it's been celebrated in Texas, it was always about freedom. And so we had voter registration. We talked about how we utilize black businesses. And so I need folk to understand, stop looking for a reason to have a party. Don't let nobody non-black lead Juneteenth events, and it's not about freedom. It ain't about unity. It ain't about togetherness. It ain't about let's all get along. Juneteenth, listen to me clearly, has always been about freedom for black people.
Yes.
Don't get it twisted.
Come on.
Back in a moment.
That was a pivotal time. I remember Kevin Hart telling me that. He's like, man, what you doing, man? You got to stay on stage. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm young, thinking, like, I'm good. And he was absolutely right.
What show did you have at the time?
This was one-on-one.
Got it.
During that time.
So you're doing one-on-one, going great. Yeah. You making money. You like.
I'm like, I don't need to leave. I don't need to leave from Wednesday, Thursday to Sunday. I didn't want to do that. It was just like, I'm gonna stay here. Or I didn't want to finish work Friday, fly out, go do a gig Saturday, Sunday. I was like, I don't have to do that. And I lost a little bit of that hunger that I had in New York. I would hit all the clubs, run around. Sometimes me and Chappelle or me and this one or that one, we'd go to the Comedy Cellar at 1 in the morning. And I mean, that was our life. We loved it. You do 2 shows in Manhattan, go to Brooklyn, leave Brooklyn, go to Queens, go to Jersey. And I got complacent. I was like, I got this money, I'm good. I don't need to go chase that, because that money wasn't at the same level that I was making, but what I was missing was that training.
Yes.
Was that.
And it wasn't the money.
It was the money. It was that's what I needed.
Coming up next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network, Shanita Hubbard.
We're talking about the ride or die chick. We're breaking it down. The stereotype of the strong Black woman.
Some of us are operating with it as if it's a badge of honor. Like, you even hear Black women like aspiring to be this ride or die chick, aspiring to be this strong Black woman, so at their own expense.
Next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
Layla Bajinka has been missing from her St. Paul, Minnesota home since April 17th. The 14-year-old is 4 feet 11 inches tall, weighs 154 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Authorities caution, do not approach Layla if you see her. They don't explain why, but they're saying do not approach Layla if you see her. Call the Hennepin County, Minnesota Sheriff's Office at 952-258-5321, 952-258-5321. Lord, y'all, these crazy white folks, now they mad at Chick-fil-A. Now, they've been upset with Target about LGBTQ stuff. They mad at Bud Light because they sent a transgender a can with their photo on it. Now they are calling for the cancellation of Chick-fil-A, the beloved Chick-fil-A, the Christian conservative Chick-fil-A, because they have a DEI page. Now, I told y'all when I wrote my book, White Fear, that this whole thing was not about schools and critical race theory. No, they want to go after everything. And do y'all have the video of my man Kathy? The video when he was at the church talking about, okay. So now, and Harris Falk, the token black woman, and I'm saying that for a reason, on Fox's Outnumbered, she had the audacity to blast him by saying that his comments were wrong and how ridiculous he was for what he said about whites and African Americans. Watch this, y'all.
Here about a story that was shared with me by a dear friend who shared with me about a revival that was taking place at a church in Texas. And at that revival, on the front seat was an older African American man that was sitting there. And this young man got up that was there in that service, and he'd been so gripped with conviction about the racism that was in that local community in a small town in Texas that he took a shoe brush and he walked over to this elderly gentleman and he knelt on his knees and began to shine his shoes. And tears began to flow in that service. It was an attitude of conviction. So I invite folks to put some words to action here. And if we need to find somebody that needs to have their shoe shine, we need to just go right on over and shine their shoes. And whether they got tennis shoes on or not, maybe they got sandals on, it really doesn't matter. But there's a time in which we need to have, some personal action here. Maybe we need to give them a hug too, brother.
and some stock in Chick-fil-A.
But I bought about 1,500 of these, and I gave to all our Chick-fil-A operators and staff a number of years ago. And so any expressions of a contrite heart, of a sense of humility, a sense of shame, a sense of embarrassment, beget with an apologetic heart. I think that's.
So here's two things. So these folks, Reese, they're mad about the DEI piece, but again, Harris Faulkner had an attitude, just couldn't believe that he said those things. And I'm like, hey, y'all so-called Christians, if they actually listened to what the man said, he was talking about racism. He was talking about what he was describing was no different than Jesus washing the feet. See, they don't want to deal with that, so they mad what he had to say, but they ain't mad at the racism, just like Mike Pence is demanding the Dodgers apologize for inviting an organization that's been on the forefront of fighting AIDS to a pride event because they felt that they are mocking Catholics, when Mike Pence ain't said nothing about the report out of Maryland and Illinois showing how the Catholic Church covered up widespread abuse of their priests.
This is all unhinged on everybody's behalf. Black people are not asking for white people to shine their shoes, sneakers, sandals, feet, none of that shit. Like the man said, give me some Chick-fil-A stock. If you want to be helpful, if you want to be contrite, that could be my reparations, not you shining my shoes. So I just think that this is a war that white people are having with themselves, because Black people ain't really too hung up on this DEI stuff. First of all, most of the DEI jobs are going to white women anyway. They're not even going to Black people. And then when the Black people get in the roles...
First of all, 75% of DEI jobs are held by white people.
Exactly. So they really just beefing with each other at this point, because we ain't even really in it. We ain't even really in the situation. You know, we benefit marginally from it. And so this is, as far as I'm concerned, white on white crime. You know, if y'all want to find something to be fake mad about, and y'all want to be mad at the white man for shining the shoes, even though he's the CEO, the white man is not going to pay nobody extra money. They're not going to give a Black extra benefit. He's not giving you Juneteenth off. So in reality, it's nothing more than an empty gesture. It's weird. And I mean, if he wants to humiliate himself under the guise or the weird thought that he's showing contrition to Black people, then let him do it. Maybe he gets his rocks off touching people's feet. I don't know. But I think you should ask Black people before you bow down and get anywhere near our feet, because you might get kicked in the face doing that with a random Black person on the street. Please get permission to touch people, white people, if you're trying to take cues from Chick-fil-A.
The thing here, Julian, is I understand what Dan Cathy was saying, but the point here that I think is really important is that the same folk who loved Chick-fil-A before, don't you find it interesting that now they mad when he's talking about how we need to be contrite about racism? See, again, that's what they mad about. They're mad about the DEI piece because they've had a DEI officer. He's been there 2 years, okay? How dare you? And see, the thing that I need people to understand, Julian, and I call this whole thing, they were not just focused on schools. They want to go after every diversity, equity, inclusion, multicultural, you name it, in corporate America, because they want complete, total power and control, and do not want to see any level of advancement by Black folks and other people of color.
Well, first of all, I want to reaffirm Reese when she said, watch out before you touch somebody. I mean, these people crazy. Do not put your hands on me. They ain't going to turn out right. But the theme, Roland, is erasure. They want to erase race, erase difference, act as if nothing has happened. This CEO, he's a little misguided, and he should not be giving people brushes and telling him to shine people's shoes. Like the brother said, just give me some stock in Chick-fil-A. You know, where are my reparations? This symbolic BS is what white people have done since the end of enslavement. And for about a rich 12 years, post-Reconstruction, there were some movements towards equity. But you know what has happened since then? We have only 10% of the land that we had in 1880. We gained land and then they kept taking it. And that's a story that they don't want to have told. And so at the end of the day, all the symbolic BS is just that, it's symbolic. The real issue is economics. How many black people have a Chick-fil-A?
No. See, I'm telling you, I get your point about the symbolic, but again, that's not what I think is the big issue here. Follow me here. I think what's the big, what I'm loving watching just unfold is that these so-called Christians are now, follow me here. Again, forget, the posture of the shoe ain't the issue. The so-called Christians are angry that one of their most ardent supporters is talking about being contrite about racism. So see, again though, I don't want us to get caught up in don't tuck my feet, don't shine. Now, this ain't about a literal shining shoes. They mad about that. They're mad that when he's talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, they are saying, how dare you? And so what they are doing is, and I need everybody to understand what is happening here. They are about to go after every single corporation.
Yes.
Listen to me. They are going to go after corporations that support HBCUs. I want us to expand this.
That's erasure.
We are seeing it. No. But what I'm saying is, I don't want us, I'm not tripping on Dan and the shoe shine. I'm looking at their reaction to Dan speaking against racism. And they mad that he did, using the example that he cited. Julianne, finish your point, and I'm going to Greg.
Well, the point is erasure. It's erasure. They want to erase the past. They want to, if you talk back about any of this stuff, we hate America. No, we don't hate America. We effing built America. So it's not our hatred. It's the fact that we will not be erased. You have those white boys in Charlottesville, Virginia saying we would not be overtaken or whatever. We black people who built this country will not be erased. That's just it.
See, Greg, again, as I'm looking at this, and in fact, there were some folks, they were pushing, let me see if I can find it. They were pushing Kellogg's to stop their DEI initiative. And so what you're seeing is you're going to see these folk, in fact, Kellogg announced gains at DEI goals, including at management level. What you're going to see, Greg, and y'all can write this down, everybody who's watching and listening. You're about to see these critics, they're going to attack any initiative where a corporation, anything dealing with social justice, anything dealing with race, anything dealing with black folks, anything dealing with equity, and they're not going to stop. And they're gaining, so they knocked off $10 billion of market cap for Target opposing the LGBTQ stuff in the store. They've knocked off $27 billion in market cap of Anheuser-Busch because of the Bud Light. So what I hope black folks who are watching is what they are doing is using the same Operation Breadbasket strategy and now forcing these companies to they want them to reconsider their actions. And don't be surprised when there's something that we like, that folks have been support, they come after. we better be real smart and careful and watch what they're doing, Greg, because they're coming.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be relentless in coming after us.
Absolutely.
Yes,
It'd be very nice if we would be smart, but the American Negro doesn't really have a track record of that en masse. Well, first of all, I reminded of the joke Richard Pryor used to tell. He said, "Don't you hate it when somebody interviews black people and they say, why don't they ever talk about us? We fought the Indians." And then Richard Pryor is like, "Shut up, fool. Shut up, fool. You want the Indians mad at us too?" First of all, we built this country. This is a settler enterprise. Onward Christian soldiers. I don't want no damn credit for displacing the aboriginals of this country. Like, that's a point of damn pride. They snatched us here to dispossess other people. Now, how does that tie to Chick-fil-A? This man's a Christian nationalist. He's on the home team. Remember, the people who are maddest at Castro, and they are almost all dead now, in South Florida, they mad at him because he put them out of Cuba in 1959-60 because Castro was one of them. He was one of the white elites. They turned on them first. So they was like, man, you were supposed to be with us. This boy Chick-fil-A is the home team. That's why the brother was like, yeah, or reparations. And he went like this, like, I see what you're doing. I see what you did there. Them low-wage workers at Chick-fil-A, he ain't gonna get him no raise and nothing like that, but he's a onward Christian soldier, Trump supporting, propping up the white Christian nationalists. And you're absolutely right, Roland, they are turning on them. Why might that be a good thing ultimately? You have walked us through how many times how these DEIU things that they put in place 3 years ago when they thought we was gonna tear up the whole damn world and now are backtracking on have been deeply ineffective. And if Kellogg say they made progress, what does that mean? You hired two because you didn't have none? But the point is that in this internecine conflict, it all is oriented around them preserving this fascist, racist, white nationalism. And if his response will be to back up off it, maybe mission accomplished. If they knock off some market share, mission accomplished. But I'm going to tell you about the American Negro. You go to South Africa, KFC. You go to West Africa, KFC. You go to Egypt, KFC. In other words, the Negro is brand loyal. Our political consciousness is it ain't even in the toilet. It's on the ground outside the toilet. The reason that man's family, reason this man's family would starve if you waiting on Greg Carr to buy anything out of Chick-fil-A, because I know the history of Chick-fil-A and its owners. Remember last year, they tweeted out something, and again, the brand loyal Negro who will eat Chick-fil-A till it's coming out of their eyes said something like, "Oh, y'all got grilled spicy deluxe, but no spicy nuggets." And Chick-fil-A tweeted back to this brother, "Your community will be the first to know if spicy items are added to the permanent menu, Don." Why my community? Because you Negroes will burn down a church to get to Chick-fil-A. Until we develop some sense of self-respect, which is what I suspect y'all gonna be talking about at Juneteenth in Texas, the third week of June, we are gonna be pawns in a game that we don't even know is going on. But hey, man, you'll starve before you get something from me from Chick-fil-A, brother, because you can shine my shoes, but as the brother said, what about that stock? I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
All right, y'all, hold tight. I'm going to go to a quick break. I'll be right back. 2 minutes for our final segment on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, a store owner in South Carolina who shot and killed a black teenager on Sunday has had previous run-ins and fired shots at people who he thought were shoplifting. Rick Child, Express Mart Shell gas station owner, killed 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton after he chased him for wrongly accusing him of shoplifting. He shot him in the back. Well, reports indicate police received numerous calls about trouble at the Express Mart Shell gas station. Child had confrontations with customers in 2015 and 2018. In one incident in 2015, he fired 6 times at a car after he tried to stop someone he suspected of shoplifting beer. And a second incident took place in 2018 when he fired 2 shots at a man accused of stealing Easy Off. The Richland County Sheriff's Department said the incidents did not meet the requirements under South Carolina law to support criminal charges because authorities determined he wasn't the instigator in either incident. Child was arrested and charged with murder. He remains in jail and is awaiting a bond hearing. This right here, Greg, is the problem. He did it twice before, you did nothing, and he thought he could do it again.
That's right, Roland. It's absolutely right. You know, somebody was mentioning the other day Latasha Harlins. Remember her, the young lady who went in the store in L.A., and the owner, the Korean shop owner, shot her in the head, in the back over some orange juice, was convicted by a jury, and then the white woman judge gave her probation. You see, when you encourage this kind of thing, going back to them, going back to them deputies, them sheriff's deputies there, 21 years old, 23 years old, 24 years old, they've been initiated into the idea that you can do whatever the hell you want to black people. You can put up buckets of chicken in front of their Juneteenth flags. You can beat the shit out of them in a holding cell, or you can just basically pop them. You know, what is the answer to this? You know, simply, I mean, it just comes down to this. At some point, we have to have self-respect. And this isn't about individuals, although it is also about individuals. We got to, you know, be able to stand up as individuals. But we have to develop our collective strength. Again, I'm very encouraged. I'm looking forward to see what this conversation is going to be down there in Juneteenth, the thing that you're going to announce. Because until we come together and build a collective strength, then these kind of things will happen because there's no penalty. And people are taught that you can do whatever the hell you want to black people.
Yeah.
Reese, Reese.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea that you can just execute a person for a bottle of water, even if he had stolen it, which he hadn't, is outrageous. But, you know, this is behavior that escalated. It was behavior that was essentially condoned, and not only condoned by the police officer, but condoned by the customers who believe that it's okay to continue to patronize a business where the store owner is violent and menacing towards the customers who they want to falsely accuse of stealing. So shame on him, but also shame on the community who continue to give this business business even after their pattern of very, very abusive and almost violent behavior.
And that right there, Julian, rewarding people who don't respect you. This gas station should have been shut down, should have been picketed. It should have said, don't y'all buy a damn thing from this fool.
Exactly. No, this place needs to be shut down. If anybody who goes there after this basically needs to be publicly flogged. I mean, if you go to this place after this, you're basically saying it's okay to kill black people. But this young man, boy, really, at 14, you know, basically, there's no proof that he had a gun. There's a whole bunch of Twitter feed about, but he had a gun. It's not illegal for him to have a gun. And look at that cute young man. Look at that smile. It breaks my heart that this man, his son is a liar. His son is a liar. He said the young man brandished a gun. There's no proof of that. I know they have security cameras. What you have is permission to slaughter us in public. Permission to slaughter us in public. And this is just one of a series. Greg Carr is right. You know, if we don't do anything, then we're telling people, go on and kill me because I don't care. Kill my son, kill my babies, kill my grandson because I don't care. There has to be action. It has to be economic action. And somebody needs to sue the mess out of this man. But not only that, the community needs to rise up. And while I do not advocate violence, Folks know what to do. We did it in the 60s. We did it in the 60s. That's all I got to say.
Right.
Y'all laughing at me?
All right, folks.
I'm agreeing.
All right, folks. That is it for us. Let me thank Julian. Let me thank Greg. Let me thank Reese. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Those of you who are watching, we appreciate you watching and listening. Don't forget, you're on YouTube. Hit that like button, y'all. We should easily be over 1,000 likes every single day. All right. Let me also thank Melanie Campbell, National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, for the event for the last couple of days. We actually were live streaming that. If you missed any of the sessions, go to our Black Star Network app. Go to our YouTube channel. You can actually see that as well. Also, folks, we need you to continue to support us in what we do. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and, of course, support us financially. Trust me, y'all, we are out here trying to make it happen when it comes to these ad agencies, but it is not easy. So, please, your dollars help us support our staff, help us support, pay the bills. It is crucial to us being able to do what we do. We are behind in our fundraising, and we appreciate if you, whatever help you can give. Check and money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And, of course, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at Ben Bella Books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target. You can also download your copy on Audible. Folks, I'll see you tomorrow from Atlanta, right here in Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.